Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, September 15th. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times, here with Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of The Times, and Times columnist Mark Kiesling, bringing you the latest developments in local political news in Northwest Indiana. Let's start off by talking about something. We're taping this on Thursday, and tomorrow there is possibly a school boycott possibly going to happen in East Chicago, where the East Chicago Coalition for Education Reform, which is outspoken in its criticism of the current superintendent, they want him out, is trying to drum up support for a boycott, or where they want parents to basically keep their kids home from school tomorrow, Friday, which is a crucial day for the school district. It's the day that they take the count. The state takes its count of students present, which goes in large part to determine how much funding a school district gets.
Right, and so the idea is if you went to get at the superintendent, then you punish them financially.
Right, you keep the children home, and it appears that your base is shrunk.
Right. Now I've got two problems with this. Well, a couple of them, maybe not just two, but one is, what does that say to the kids that school isn't important today, and we don't want you learning. That sends a wrong message to my mind. But also, there's the factor that, okay, so the count is taken. Do you really want your children to suffer? Because this is money that will be going toward the children, not just into the superintendent's salary.
Well, yeah, and not only that, I mean, you hurt the kids, but teachers could possibly be laid off because of this. So that's, you have that. Extracurricular activities could be eliminated. Certain benefits that the students have now could go out the window, all because of you're trying to make a political point. I think they made their point.
Right.
But I don't see what good a boycott could possibly do, Mark.
Oh, no, of course, you saw the East Chicago student-led boycott last year. That basically they stayed out of school for the morning, and they told them, look, you're going to have to come back in, or there's going to be punishment meted out. And the kids all said, well, we'll come back in, so you just wonder how successful this is going to be. I mean, do you get any sense as to whether or not there's any parental support for this? Or
well, I think it is led by parents. I mean, they're
the
upset.
Group is a group of parents.
Right. So they're upset with the superintendent, and this is their way of trying to make their point. But
how many? I mean, you've got to have.
Well, we're going to find out tomorrow.
Well, I was going to say, you're going to have a significant amount before you can make any kind of impact.
Well, I mean, any amount does make an impact. I mean, in terms of the dollars are dependent on the number.
Right.
There. So anything will make an impact.
Right. From the standpoint of a child who's sick, probably, from a financial standpoint, it'd be better to send the child there and have him sent home sick, because then he will have been counted already.
Right. So. And when we're talking about East Chicago, currently one of two school districts that have appointed rather than elected school boards,
but
that is going to
changing.
change, and that is going to change. So that's another consideration is that at fairly soon, parents are going to have some recourse in terms of direct election of school board members.
Right, next year. I mean, the question is, how much patience can you have? And I think in this case, they need considerable patience to wait for that board to reflect their views.
Sure. Another neighboring school district, Gary, is also has just yesterday announced that they would not be bringing back their superintendent, Myrtle Campbell.
Right, and this is on the heels of Roosevelt going into, in essence, academic receivership.
Right.
That's a good term. I'll have to remember that.
In fact, I like that. That pretty well describes what happened there.
It kind of came at the same time that Edison Learning was kind of presenting what its plan was.
Right, and then so now, ironically, then Banneker School in Gary gets named one of the best schools in the nation too. So Gary residents have a lot of ups and downs when it comes to the schools there.
Well, remember, Banneker's kind of a magnet school.
Right.
So it draws, that's always, you know, you
have your positives and negatives with magnet schools.
Yeah, thank you. But, you know, it draws the best and the brightest. And sometimes that's at the expense of other schools.
Well,
it takes the best and the brightest away from those schools, including a school like Roosevelt.
Yeah. Well, shifting to Cline Avenue, the ongoing saga of Cline Avenue, the shuttered bridge, which we don't know whether it's going to be rebuilt or not. We talked about tomorrow.
Tomorrow's
tomorrow's
D-Day, kind of.
Is the deadline for a plan to come up with $35 million that it would take to rebuild the bridge. Doug, what could possibly happen here?
Well, what could happen is, and we should add a little bit more context, is there's another bridge, the Sherman-Minton Bridge on I-64.
On the Ohio River.
Exactly, that was shut down last week also for structural problems. Exactly. And so that's a huge headache down there. So it's not just Northwest Indiana. It's becoming apparent that there are infrastructure problems, elsewhere in Indiana, and so it becomes a bigger issue than just you yahoos up in the Chicago area are pestering us again.
It becomes a major move.
Well, exactly. And so here's the question: if Governor Daniels wants to make the bridge over the Ohio River a toll bridge, and if this outfit that wants to make Cline Avenue into a toll bridge,
the Florida company they're talking about negotiating with,
right? And so if they make their presentation today or tomorrow, as we heard is possible, then who knows what's going to happen. It's a real cliffhanger.
It should be interesting. Plus this has put the reconstruction of the 9-span bridge in Hammond kind of on the back burner, because who knows? I mean that's been shored up several times.
Right.
It's gone from it's gone from 4 lanes to 2 lanes because it's had to brace it. They've had to brace it and that's only going to last so long too.
Yeah, the 9-span's near the end of its lifespan, you might say. And we should mention here that the Cline Bridge was originally proposed by NDOT to be replaced next year anyway. So now it becomes a question of, is the state going to pony up state money for it, or is it just going to use federal money and whatever company might want to provide it?
Sometimes that kind of makes you wonder. The Cline Avenue Bridge was begun in 1982, opened in 1984. The 9-span bridge was opened in 1935. So you wonder, do they maybe they just don't build them like they used to?
They don't actually. In the old days, they didn't have the computer models and all of that stuff. They just built them as strong as they could and had a bunch of guys jump on the bridge to test it. Yeah, I mean, I'm being facetious, but they just did the best to their knowledge, and now they're using the computer models and saying we've got an expected life of this bridge of X number of years, so let's build it for that rather than build it for eternity. So we'll see what happens.
Which one is more financially, fiscally responsible, do you think?
Well, replacing a bridge every few decades seems like a lot of money.
It does, because they don't get any cheaper.
This is true, and if it's $150 million to replace the Cline Avenue Bridge, it's a state highway, so we know that some state money, logically would go into it if logic were a part of the equation. But federal money would pay the bulk of it.
Yeah,
so.
And you'd hope, you got the president out going around trumpeting his Jobs Act, and part of that is infrastructure. So,
and the transportation bill hasn't been passed. So, who knows what'll happen with that? That's been
Yeah.
one of the many bits of
Yeah.
legislation
Well,
put on.
certainly if they rebuilt the bridge, it would bring some jobs and some
Oh,
a
absolutely.
much needed injection of money into the local economy. So,
But are they going to be able to, is he going to be able to come up with it?
yeah, that's
Right now, that's kind of
Well, that's a $14 trillion
Ooh,
question.
that is, and we'll
It's-
we'll see what happens tomorrow. Deadline for that as well. So it should be an interesting day. Certainly come back to NWI.com and pick up Saturday's Times to read what happens with that. But we'll obviously be bringing you all the news on NWI.com as it happens. So that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week with another Political Roundtable.